Hey, welcome back everyone to our podcast series in celebration of NSWC Crane's 80th anniversary. I'm Sandy Zaire along with
Ben Harkness.
Hey, welcome back, Ben. Looking forward to talking about number 3, and now we're going to get into some of the Ben Harkness era, so looking forward to hearing your reflections on some of that. Reminder for everyone, look for social media posts featuring historical topics about Crane as a part of this 80th anniversary celebration. And we're going to hit some high-level things today with not a lot of details, but if you want more details and more depth, the Indiana Historical Society has a Crane archive. It's on their website at indianahistory.org/digital/collection/Crane, and all kinds of stuff, Crane publications, bursts and duds, the old Commodores, lots of imagery, and it's all in the public domain. You can release it, you're free to use it, and so feel free to go check that out. It actually is really interesting. And so again, 4 score is what we're calling this anniversary. Ben, quickly again, remind us why we call it 4 score.
Yeah, kind of keyed off of Abraham Lincoln's 4 score and 7 years ago speech. And the 4 score is 20-year segments. That's what a score is. And so that's how we kind of divided this up.
Excellent. And so this time the 3rd score. So we're going to begin with 1981, take us right up to 2001 rather, and 9/11. So we'll get started. We're going to start with this era beginning with the Reagan defense buildup. And so really put the U.S. Navy in arguably the strongest position the Navy had been in since World War II. A lot of benefits to Crane, a lot of growth, again, as Crane continued to evolve technically in non-ordnance work. Things like anti-submarine warfare, sonar, Trident missiles, submarine systems, all things near and dear to your heart, Ben, as you built your career on some of those things, along with radar, microwave tubes, and EO, night vision, electronic warfare systems. Boy, the SSP community was really engaged at this time too, weren't they?
Yeah, they counted on us. They don't like us to refer to them as their customer. They want us to refer to them as partners. We're partners and have been for a long time. With them, we had new relationships that established during that time frame as well, Sandy. The U.S. Special Operations Command, U.S. SOCOM, was forged, and Crane brought a lot of support in the areas of small arms, night vision, electro-optics, and specialized ordnance capabilities to that community, and that continues on even today. And another growing relationship was with the Marine Corps and vehicle integration for air defense and command and control and communications. And we just recently had a Marine Corps 1-star general out here visiting Crane just last week.
Yeah, hey, and so this also marked that we really got into electronic warfare at this point, and we're full-fledged into radar as well at this time. So lots of things happening, a lot of transition, heavy transition from ordnance engineering, and really science drove command forward. Weapon systems, electronics, we mentioned RF systems, EO systems, just a lot of things happening. And during this time period, Ben, in the 80s,
3 new departments.
Yeah,
3 new departments.
Tell
the Electronics Development Department was stood up. The Weapons Department was the second, and our 3rd department was Electronic Warfare. And all 3 of those departments really started to align their technical capabilities to the needs of the warfighter.
Absolutely. And so continuing to try to consolidate these things. So some of the responsibilities at Crane really got into things like the in-service engineering agent, we call them ISEA, for the SLIC 32 system. So tell me a little bit about that system, Ben.
Well, it's an electronic warfare system that goes on to our surface Navy platforms, and it's the predominant electronic warfare capability that the Navy has on those platforms. And Crane just evolved with their roots in the technical arena of radar and electronic warfare of the early days to get focused in with this particular program and program office of the early onset, and we're just a key part of and partners with that program executive office that has the overall responsibility to field that system and maintain it for the warfighter.
Absolutely, and we talked about this whole Reagan buildup, this Reagan era, and we already talked about SSP and our growing relationship there, but also growing relationship with the Aegis program, the NAVAIR community, which we talked about in the last podcast, kind of had its roots back in that quality evaluation lab and our work there. NAVAIR came to us for EW and IR countermeasure programs, and we supported them at that point, the Navy sonar community, and even the Navy supply community. And all this went really well, big Reagan buildup, a lot of things happening, and then the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah,
and the Cold War.
Yeah,
ended.
Sandy, I got hired in 1988, just at the tail end of that Reagan buildup. And
Okay,
there were not a lot of engineers, or really for that matter, any employees that were hired. There was already starting to see a little bit of a downturn that occurred.
interesting.
But there was also recognition that attrition was happening on a regular basis as well. I mean, people are always going to retire or attrit through some means, and as a result of that, you had to continue to bring in new employees as well. And I was fortunate to come in 1988. And my first supervisor, I mentioned, come out of the quality evaluation lab. Ron Andis was his name. He's since passed away. But Ron was responsible for standing up an operation focused on some acquisition and in-service engineering support for Navy tactical computers. And that's where I got to come in and start working. And interesting thing, Sandy, I just got to mention this, is I really was fortunate to have a couple of great guys that I got to work with in school. We were classmates together growing up. They still work up here at Crane. Bill Whitehead, Randy McAtee, and Keith Lannon. And we were really the, four guys that eventually ended up coming all here to Crane.
Wow.
and working in various aspects. We never worked together, any of us, but we always knew kind of where the other ones were at. And it was always interesting to me when I hired in and learned from Ron. I got to do that hands-on work right off the front. And Ron was just a great supervisor that instilled within me, go learn as much as you can about that system, because you're one day going to be the one that the Navy's going to turn to for help when it comes to upgrades or solving problems or dealing with component obsolescence or whatever it might be. And they came, and it was true. I found myself becoming
Wow.
the person that they were coming to. And I also realized that there was a great technical workforce that existed here at Crane with a lot of capability that really opened my eyes up to people that could go and get down inside electronics and figure out what really was wrong with them through the capabilities that had been stood up over the years, as well as learning about folks that understood logistics and fleet support and the ability to maintain and keep things fielded, and to bring back problems that occur in the fleet and how you go about looking at that, looking at trends, looking at models, figuring out what we do next in order to improve our products. And Crane really, over the years then, and into this next decade, became known as the organization where you transition technology and you move technology forward to keep advancing the needs for the warfighter.
So that gets back a little bit to what you talked about in our last podcast about the application, or being able to get your hands on and apply what you learned in a book somewhere. And so that when you came in, it looked a little different, at least at the beginning, from what it had the previous 40 years, because you were involved in an era where the White House and Department of Defense were making budget cuts, and hiring frozen for 8 years, 3 rounds of reductions in force, separation incentive package. They offered $25,000 and some voluntary early retirement, and it just a lot happened right there at the end with this quote unquote peace dividend, right?
Yeah, boy, Sandy, I do remember that time in the mid 90s when we went through that reduction in force. And I had just become a branch manager at the time, and unfortunately, I had to make a decision with the budget cuts that were coming to reduce the staff that I had from 18 to 15. And, that was hard. That was hard, Sandy. It was very difficult to look those folks in the eyes and tell them that I was going to have to cut them. Now, fortunately, they didn't find themselves moving out the gates. They were able to bounce and bump, and with the incentive package that you mentioned, it gave an opportunity for them to move into other parts of their careers. And I was glad that they didn't have to go out the gate, but at the same time, it was just really hard. And when you have to look somebody in the eye and tell them that, it was a difficult time.
Well, and you were still early in your career, weren't you, at that point?
Yeah, I was early on in the career, and that was hard on somebody who really didn't know what it all meant to be a branch manager at the time, and really how to lead an organization. But I worked through it and had a lot of great support from my bosses above me that helped guide me through that.
So the part of this period then also became the Gulf War, right? So January 1991, President Bush announced the start of Operation Desert Storm, Gulf War.
Yeah, even though we were starting in that, there was still a term, and we were starting to draw down because the budget pressures that were there. We still had a tremendous need for our capabilities. It forced us to really look at how can we do things differently, how can we do things better. We started to look at business process reengineering efforts and continuous improvement, and we found ways to continue to provide support to that particular war. And we even had people who worked at Crane that would go over and support in theater, Sandy.
So this is where and this is where that special forces work that we had developed with SOCOM was so important. You know, we had these special forces troops were out in the deserts trying to track and attack Scud missiles. We remember hearing about Scud launchers and really put Crane in this kind of quick reaction mode, 24-hour, 7 days. I mean, 24/7, just on call, trying to help assist in that effort.
Had to provide that support, and Crane was recognized with award after award for their support of Operation Desert Shield.
So Ben, one thing I want to ask you about was there were numbered codes at that time. We have names now, but there were numbered codes. You had code 20, you had code 50, code 60, 70, 80. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, 20 was engaged with the Marine Corps and the SEALs in preparations and the early missions that included the usage of small arms ammunition, night vision devices, chemical and biological detection devices. At the time, Code 50 was our ordnance and pyrotechnic department, and they focused on infrared flares and support the NAVAIR and the other services that needed those particular pieces of equipment. Code 60, 70, and 80 provided support for mine hunting systems, mine countermeasures, airborne and surface CW, radar systems, and many other required needs.
So lots going on, a lot of relevance from Crane in this era. But in the midst of all that, Congress approved a Base Realignment and Closure Commission, a new thing. They called it BRAC.
Yeah, four rounds, Sandy, 1988, 1991, 1993, and 1995.
Yeah, so work continued, but some of the mindset of command and leadership at that time, I'm going to guess, shifted a little bit to an even bigger issue.
Yeah, it really, kind of became preoccupied with survival.
Yeah, right.
What do we do to make sure that the base survives and try to best position? And I can remember BRAC commissioners coming and visiting Crane during that time frame. And, as a manager, just the uneasiness and the unrest that existed within the workforce,
Sure.
and trying to, calm them and say, look, it'll be okay. I mean, the things we work on are important, and eventually things will prevail, and we will find ourselves coming out the other end in a better place. It may not be exactly the same place,
Right.
but it'll be a better place for us.
And then through all that, in 1992, we had another name change. It went from NWSC to NSWC.
Yeah, the Naval Surface Warfare Center. And I don't remember how long it took me to stop writing NWSC and start writing NSWC, but it seemed like it was longer than what it took me to stop writing the year 2020 on my checks, right? And go to the next year.
Yeah, good point. So the late 90s, some visionary leadership too, I think is really important. So Technical Director Steve Godey came in and had been in, but in 97 made a really interesting move, a very proactive move, if you will, in hiring 180 scientists and engineers, ordered the hiring and kind of spread them out and pushed them to, push directorates at Crane, these code numbers we talked about, to go find work for them.
Yeah, I'm kind of chuckling here a little bit, Sandy. The 180, I think, was the number that he was focused on there, and the push. And I was branch manager at the time, and it was, my allocation was one.
Wow.
And I was told that I had to go hire one, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for that. And the people that were in the organization with me, Tony Bledsoe, Lambert Beecher, Baker, Alma Jones, Lester Federby, those core people, Bob Dorsett, names that come to my mind that were working with me at the time that I had worked with for a long time. They were like, Ben, we don't have the work for another person. Boss, no, there's no place for that person to sit. And it was like, but we have to do it. And what was really cool about Mr. Godey is I remember, he had a vision as well that said, hey, look, in order for us to move forward in our technical capabilities, we have to continue to hire, and we can't just sit and just accept what people bring to us. We got to be hungry and go out and go after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it did force, I believe, us to get out and get more on the road and start visiting our customers and look for new customers that needed our technical capabilities.
So it pushed you out of your comfort zone.
It did push us,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Wow, absolutely. Good stuff. Hey, and one more thing that happened in 1998, Crane opened the Lake Glendora Hydroacoustic Test Facility over in Sullivan, Indiana. And so it was really the Navy's first and only land-based facility of that kind, and was just a piece of Crane's full spectrum hydroacoustic test capability. Really interesting. So tell me, Ben, about Y2K. 2000 rolled around here, the dreaded Y2K.
Yeah, everybody remembers, or at least those folks that were around at that time, remembered when your computers roll over, right?
Yep.
00, when you're counting on 97, 98, 99.
Right.
What's going to happen when it rolls to 00? And everybody thought we were going to have this big, huge crash of our systems and things weren't going to work. And it really didn't have much of a ripple effect at all.
Yeah, no meltdown at all. Hey, one final thing happened in 2000 is noteworthy, and that was a small craft attacked the USS Cole, a suicide attack, detonating some explosives, ripping a hole in the hull of that ship, and Crane was a bit of played a role there, didn't they, Ben?
Yeah, Crane had a significant role in helping to provide protection against small craft that had maybe the desire to do something similar to other systems, and many folks that work even at Crane today got a chance to work on the technology to put in place a protection system for ships early on to counter that particular threat. It was a difference maker.
Yeah, absolutely. So this era, the 1981 up to late 2000, early into 2001, was an era that really began with the Reagan defense buildup. We then had the end of the Cold War, defense downsizing, BRAC, reductions in force. And then in the middle of this era, we had the name change, the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane, and some significant hiring actions in the late 90s. So that's kind of a recap of this era, Ben. Sort of puts the finishing touch on this third podcast of 4 in honor of Crane's 80th anniversary. Again, our thanks to our broadcast engineer, Seth Tackett, for his help with recording and post-production. Next time is going to be a lot of fun, Ben.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
It's the 20 years that I probably remember the most, right?
Yeah.
And you've been here as well, and boy, it's going to be a good session when we get to that last 20.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing Crane's fourth score, 2001 to 2021 next time. And of course, we'll begin with a discussion of Crane and 9/11. And so we hope you'll join us for that one. For Ben Harkness, I'm Sandy Zaire. Thanks for listening.